sit down, have another one. Come on. And you'd end up just like, so it's just like out of self-preservation. You just have to do the Polish.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was just like,
Hold on, give me 1 second.
at some point, just going basically.
Oh, no, it's gone.
Oh no, I'm talking about just going like from like the club. Unless, only time I would not do that is if I'm the only person driving.
Right,
That's the only time.
That's it. No,
other than
definitely.
that-
When you've got a responsibility of someone over there, it's different. But if it's just,
Yeah, but it's kind of like, other than that, just like, fuck it, go. Like, and then at some point, that's how people learn how to take you, because if you're not there, then they just know that you've already left. And the thing is that sometimes it works out better because maybe, and then everybody else started to adopt it too, because it's kind of like if you're somewhere and then like maybe you actually do meet somebody, you do end up going home with somebody, you don't want to go and like say like bye to like 5 people when you're supposed to be like leaving, basically. And so it's kind of like, it was like a certain like code that we kind of took to each other. It's kind of like a language that we started. Actually, like I guess every kind of like friend group or circle of people develops its own like kind of culture.
Totally, yeah. And I definitely think it's a good understanding in your friend group of the need to pull a Polish exit is important, isn't it? Really. Yeah. I love those conversations the next day where you'd say to someone like, "What time did you leave?" "I think I was there till about 4. What about you?"
And the thing is, it's like too. It's kind of like if somebody actually comes and tells you that they're about to leave, that's like a red flag, and it's kind of like, okay, what's happening? What actually happened?
Like, are you okay? Are you okay? Is someone giving you some issues or something?
Is somebody giving you issues? Do you have like some troubles at home that we can just speak about? Like, what's really happening?
Totally. Am I going to feel guilty about not wanting to leave at the same time? It's this better all around, isn't it? Just
exactly. Oh man, cheers. I'm glad that I was finally able to like catch you.
Yeah.
I've been trying to catch you for like 5-6 months.
Yeah, it's been a while. We've had like this whole, I don't know, some kind of weird flu thing going around, haven't we?
Yeah. There's a special strand of like gonorrhea.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I shouldn't have said that. It's like an airborne gonorrhea. No.
Yeah.
Stop.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, thing is, you've got to find your humour through it, haven't you? Really?
Yeah. I guess the thing about it is like, it's a very peculiar thing. I'm always like torn between it because on one hand, it's this sort of thing where on one hand I don't want to really keep talking about it, but at the same time I do have to admit that it's always interesting to see like what everybody else's experience with it was.
Exactly.
And like so like say like even like for the one that you're talking about with on the podcast that you had with Ghost Poet, and he was like, I moved from like London to like Berlin in the middle of like a pandemic. I just got here like 3 weeks ago, and so it's just kind of like, but the thing that I think is most interesting is that when you're there and then you realize you could do your work anywhere, and you're not really necessarily happy with the way in the direction that the country is going, and then so you actually have a chance to act on it. Basically, and I thought this was like funny because I have a guilty habit, don't tell anybody, of like watching like random YouTube sort of like channels of just different like podcasts and like comedians talking. As well as there's these little web series things. But one thing that always was that has been popping up in the last couple of months is people that migrated to California for their career. They feel like they don't necessarily need to be there for it anymore, and so they moved away somewhere else.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So this was it's kind of like a fascinating thing for me. So like for me, like when I heard that Ghost Poet said that, that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Right, yeah. Do you think people go to... Is California, do you think, a place where people that aren't native from California go for sort of like jobs rather than...
Very much so. You go there for a very specific kind of job.
Yeah.
Primarily in some sort of like media. Some people go there with some level of dream, whether it's to be a director or an actor or like comedy or something. Yeah, that's a place where you go for any sort of like entertainment business. Yeah. Especially in the US.
Yeah.
So, it's very much a real thing. Also, I have the feeling that's why sometimes people move to like London as well.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
'cause,
I
like-
mean, I did that, really. Because
Oh, yeah?
but it's like...
Yo, I thought you were from London. Where you from?
I'm from Dorset.
Okay.
Which is like on the south coast.
Oh
of
yeah,
England.
Dorset.
Dorset.
I'm not gonna
yeah.
lie, I don't know.
It's like
What is it?
we don't like. I can't really do the accent. I'm probably
Oh, do it.
I'm probably speaking it still, but yeah, it's a beautiful bit of countryside, but like the thing is, there's no culture industry there. Like there's artists that live there, but there's no culture. So in England, like there's only really one city that's got like lots and lots of industry for like media and arts jobs, and so you have to move there really. So and also, I mean, obviously, I love living there. There's a massive buzz that comes from living there as well. But you can't go like, right, I'm going to just start out making tunes, and I'm going to live in a little cottage in Kent, really. Unless you're Damon Albarn.
Yeah. So when did you move there?
To London.
Yeah.
2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just out of like curiosity, actually, I should probably do this just in case. Just in case there's no other place to come in.
No, that's why I turned off the light. It's
Oh no, I'm talking about for the sound.
off the sound.
Yeah. Oh, actually, can you take a couple of pictures too?
I have been taking pictures, man.
Okay, go.
With my phone and with the hours.
Okay, cool.
So, I got you, man.
No, I appreciate you.
So,
Oh, cheers. Man, cheers.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers. Man, but hold on. So did you saw that you were like in a couple of bands?
Yeah.
Was that before you moved to London?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've kind of lived in London on and off before then. It's just when you sort of look at someone's life and where they've moved, it's impossible to. You just kind of basically you say the nearest truth that actually works, that makes sense in a concise way. So
yeah, if anybody asks me, I say Atlanta.
Yeah.
Actually, I grew up in Macon, and then I went to college in Savannah, and then I went to Atlanta. And it's just that I lived in Atlanta for like 10 years before moving here.
Yeah.
So I understand.
You concise it, don't you?
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. People don't have time to listen to your autobiography. Kenneth Branagh. At the age of 14, I moved to.
With nothing but a satchel and a stick.
Yes. Pay attention. What was I doing when I was 13? I just said it. Listen.
There will be a test.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so how was this? No, honestly, I knew you actually from like Jill. Like she was telling me like I should really like meet you.
I remember Jill mentioned as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was like, you have to really talk to Paul, who does like Lost in Sound, and I was like, no, definitely. And then so I know you like from that, but then after just like looking around, then I found like the music that you did like before. I don't know. So, which instruments were you like playing? And also, I have to say that when I heard it, that sounds like one of the sorts of bands that, at that time in my life, I would have probably like picked up and then tried to tell everybody else that I was cooler than them, just because I was listening to like this band.
Which band was that? I was in a few. I can't remember.
It was like the first. I can't remember.
Brothers in Sound or Sancho?
I think it was the Brothers in Sound.
Brothers in Sound, right? Yeah, that was the one that sold at least 10 copies.
Oh yeah. See, if I'd have known about it, you'd have had 11.
Oh, I actually had a friend that found one of our singles in a charity shop.
Oh yeah.
For 50p.
Oh, yeah.
And bought it for me for 50p. But it was great. I already had a copy, but now I've got a copy of it with Oxfam 50p sticker on it as well.
See, somebody bought it.
Someone bought it and then decided to get rid of it as well. Which is
like I'm sure somebody's done that with mine.
Yeah,
like, I'm very sure. I mean, but I don't know. Speaking of like how people were talking about the clubs and stuff earlier, I'm not gonna lie. At that point, there were times where, when talking to people, we would like sometimes play tricks and. Sometimes, to be honest, like talking to women, and sometimes they wouldn't like talk to you because you're from the South, but then you like put on the British accent, and then they automatically like turn back around.
Really?
Yeah.
Could you do an impression of your English accent?
I can't really do it right now.
Sorry, that's
it's
really
not
on the
same.
spot. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that's really on the spot.
It's
yeah.
okay. I tried to like.
I
put
just
it out.
I have this real fondness for Americans doing English accents. Like I don't mean like kind of an actor, you know, in a Hollywood film when they pretend to be English, but just like all my American friends, like it's always that they always have a point when they'll sort of impersonate me, or they'll talk about like, you know, American friends in London would go like, yeah, and then he said, "Would you like a cup of tea?"
Yeah,
I love it so much.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking. I can actually do it, but like somehow right now it's just like...
No, I know, it's really on the spot. I'd feel really awkward if I had to do an American impression right now, so it's, you know...
Do an American impression.
No, exactly. It's
Not any type of American, do a Southern American.
I mean, I know that it'd be like y'all, but I wouldn't want to, like... You know, it's like the thing is, you spend, as an English person who like likes culture, you spend so much of your life immersed in American movies and like American culture that it's actually like I've only ever been to America once, and I went to New York for a couple of weeks, and it was so weird being there because it was like I would see sort of like street views of things that just look so instantly familiar, but like there was real oxygen around them, and they were made out of real bricks, and
there's
real
thing,
people,
and it's a real place.
I was like, fuck, this is real, you know.
You know, honestly, so how was that? Because I'm very like fascinated with this sort of. I don't know, when you see something like on a screen, it's like a sort of romanticized version of it. And this is a thing I've been dealing with like lately. Like say so. My first time actually going to Paris was like last year, and in this time, I was kind of like forced to deal with, not really deal with, but I was just in a place that I was kind of like always like on some level fascinated with. At one point during like my film studies days, I was like completely fascinated with like French New Wave films. And so just to be like in Paris in that case, I was just kind of like, you have
your copies of the New York Herald Tribune, and you're kind of, you know, running through that gallery and stuff like that. And,
I mean, it's like somehow, like I used to. There was a couple of people that I used to like really love, but then between that fact, and then also, so we were talking about like California, people moving there for work. Funny thing that happened after I left Atlanta. A lot of people started to come there for filming and things. So now there's a lot of shows that come on TV, and like I know that they're filmed in Atlanta, and it's like this very weird thing because that's never happened to me in my entire life.
Right. So you're kind of going like, why is this cool, or why is this?
Yeah, like how did this happen? And I know that it's because the state of like Georgia made incentives to try and bring the movie industry there, but at the same time, it's just like this sort of like weird thing. Like, say for example, like the one I tell, like the two stories I tell the most are when I was watching Watchmen, and they tried to make it seem like the center of Tulsa, where one of the big showdowns in the series was supposed to be in Tulsa. That shit wasn't in Tulsa. That shit was in Decatur Square. Like I have like memories of being like in Decatur Square. Basically, some fond, some not so fond. And then also like in the show Atlanta, there's one scene where they filmed in like a Zestos, and he was trying to get like a kids meal. And the thing is like I completely sympathize with that because I actually did that because outside of that Zestos, I used to like sell CDs. So,
in a shop or?
Oh no, on the street.
Oh really? Right. Yeah. Okay.
So like I didn't have a lot of places to sell it, so I just like made music, burnt like different like albums, and then I would sell them on the street for like extra money.
This is very mythological, isn't it? I always have this image of people like kind of opening their car boot up and you know.
Oh, I just didn't have a car.
Right.
Like,
okay.
but I would have done that. So I just had like a sack. And then I was like sitting out there, and then people walk by, and you just like speak to them.
Wow. Okay.
And so I would do that, but in the middle of doing that, it would also be a case of I would go to the Zestos, and being that I didn't have that much money, I would ask for the kids' meal. But then he's asking for it, and they're not going to give it to him. And I sympathize with that because that same thing happened to me. But then I figured out that what's actually cheaper is the 2-piece and a side, and you actually get much more food. And in my mind, I'm just kind of like, dude, just ask for the 2-piece. And yeah, I don't know. And I guess what I'm saying is that it's just boiling down to dealing with the romantic ideals of the way that these things are like pushed and perceived.
Yeah, there is. I mean, this is a really interesting point. Actually, I think, like, and you started by sort of talking about Paris, which is sort of so romantically distilled into a package version of it, as well, isn't it? And it's funny when you kind of come from a place, or you really know the sort of origin story, which isn't even an origin story; it's just life.
Exactly.
And then it kind of becomes somehow this kind of they sort of as we were talking about earlier on, saying, where did you come from? And I said, well, I tell people London, but actually it's from the South Coast, but people have heard of London. It's like that's kind of what they're doing in Atlanta, isn't it? By sort of, they're kind of condensing it down to something that just works as a soundbite a little bit more than,
a lot of times.
Or maybe there's an editor that said, actually, it just sounds better the way he says that, and it becomes the new truth.
Yeah, I mean, except like there's some parts where it's a little bit weird because I think there are some people that say they're from Atlanta, but they're actually from like Macon. Also, there was other people that actually said they were from like Atlanta, but they were from Augusta, and it's a bit of a weird thing. I don't know. Actually, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Actually, to try and simplify those matters.
I think it's really difficult, isn't it? I think so long as you are honest to the truth you're trying to convey, and it depends what the purpose is of why you're simplifying it. Like if what you're doing is reducing a fact, like say the food, but you're doing it in order to make something really understandable that is a truth, then that is just art has always done that. But I think if you're changing the facts and somehow the truth gets lost in that, and the story of people's lives gets kind of like sort of like altered through that, then it becomes a little bit problematic to me, I think, in my understanding of it as well. Like you always have to sort of change things to tell them make sense. It's like, when you're a kid and you kind of say little lies to basically actually that doesn't really work. Say little lies to basically get what you want. But you know what you mean. I mean, I think that's not really a good example, but
it actually is like kind of like applicable. It's like the sort of like it's like a sort of like rounding up or rounding down.
Yeah. So long as you're honest to the real integral truth of what you're trying to get across.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're somewhere and you're trying to network or have like a small talk. Yeah, you just round up or round down.
Yeah. And it's but definitely,
yeah. But I think, like you said, like as long as it's not doesn't take away from like that core truth, basically.
Yeah. Like if someone said to me, like, someone in Berlin who's international said, "Where are you? You're from the UK. Where are you from?" I'm more likely to say London, because if I say Dorset, I don't want to take up people's time too much. I want to kind of just basically get across something. I don't want to give them my entire autobiography. But if someone said to me, like, do you come from the south of England? Do you come from the countryside? I'd say, yes, I do, actually.
Yeah. No, fun times. Even though it's funny running into other people that are actually from Atlanta here, because everybody does do that rounding thing. And then you meet somebody else that says that, and then somebody is like I think there's one night I went to like an eyeglass shop or something, and there was like another friend that was visiting from Atlanta, and so we're there just looking at glasses, and the person that comes up and helps, and we're doing the thing of trying to speak German, like hallo, ja, tut mir leid, aber ich nur ein bisschen angucken, whatever. And then everybody goes through the period of like trying to speak German, and then you just kind of like give up at some point, or either you give up or you just realize that this isn't the best time for it right now, and then in the middle of it somehow you just break down, and then you're like, okay, where are you from? And then the other person is like, Atlanta. And I'm like, oh shit, Shawty, where you from? Yeah. And then they're like, oh shit. So actually I'm from like Marietta, which that person didn't say Marietta. What did they say? They said somewhere like on the outskirts, where it's like you can barely. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, but you get a pass because we're here.
Yeah. So this is the person that you were talking to that was working in the shop.
Yeah.
Wow, I love it when those things happen, isn't it? It's like
actually that's one of the best parts about like being away, like living in a foreign country.
Totally. It's like, I mean, at the same time as that, it's like I do cringe sometimes when I see sort of like bad examples of Englishness, like because I don't know about you, but I feel like I carry a sense of burden of like sort of I try to behave nicely, you know. I'm not. I'm as much as I'm aware. I'm always up for being picked up on when I'm not behaving well, and I don't realise, you know. But but then like say there's been instances in Berlin where like so particularly maybe it's sort of like around Warschauer Straße, you know, and you see like English people doing the club weekend package holiday thing, and they're like, and I'm like, oh my god, this is me when I first came here. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't feel like I had that. I don't know, but I feel like I have a kind of. I've always felt like I had a weird relationship with the U.S. to be honest.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's kind of like. I never completely felt like American, to be honest. Like even in elementary school. Yeah. Like I felt like there was like this weird like distance, to be honest. So I don't necessarily feel responsible for some of those things, but I know that feeling that way is something that most other people from other countries feel, and so something that I feel like I have to sympathize with, basically.
Right.
But I don't necessarily feel like it's sort of like relevant to me personally.
Right. Okay.
To be honest, like I don't know. Like honestly, I've always felt like the U.S. is kind of split up like a whole lot, basically, and so I'm trying to think of how to put it in a way that doesn't sound as race centric.
Say the truth.
I mean, because the thing is it's not actually, but the thing is I think to say that it is oversimplifying the truth.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and so there is a component where, me growing up, like my neighborhood was like all black people. It was middle class, like all black people. My dog, if there was somebody white that walked down the street, which literally happened like once a year, he would like lose his shit. Right. But like that, like just never like happened. It was like that separate. Like to be like in another, to not be like a white person is a completely different like experience. As far as I'm concerned, in the U.S. And I think that's just what it is in general. And I think that, there are some people that try to deny that fact, but that is simply just the fact of it. Yeah.
And so you're saying like because of that, like, I mean, like part of like we're saying just now of like not feeling entirely American. If you see some like the equivalent of say like a bunch of like white dudes from Washington really high going through Warschauer Straße, you don't feel like you got any real connection. They don't carry the responsibility. You don't carry the responsibility of them.
No, not like honestly, like not at all.
Right? Yeah.
Like not at all.
Yeah.
Like I was just kind of like they need to clean this shit up. It's more of like on a like human side. I guess for me personally, I tend to feel much more. I kind of have this like secret ambition that grand idea that I came up with yesterday when I was on the train for like 12 hours. I feel like I need to make like a list of all of the people that have said that they are more children of the earth than of a particular country. Like say for example, Charles Mingus actually said this to his kids. Yeah. And also Bruce Lee said this to his kids. Yeah. And I think there's at least 2 or 3 others that I just cannot quote right now. But I think that this is something that's good and important. Not only that, but I think like a lot of the sort of well, for lack of a better phrase, I should really work on that. Injustices and things that are like wrong in the world. I think that this idea of like countries allows people to turn a bit of a blind eye towards it, because they feel like, okay, that is not like my land, so I don't need to worry about it like so much.
Yeah.
And of course, there is like that idea of acting locally, think globally, whatever that catchphrase is. But I think you do have to respond to the things that are in the most immediate vicinity to you, but not in a way that rejects the experiences of everything else that's happening in the world.
I think that's an amazing way of putting it. That's absolutely how I feel about it. Like when you said like about rejecting the experiences of other people. Yeah, it's like obviously like, you know, it's like you would notice things about your family before you notice things about people you've not met. But at the same time, you're not throwing someone you've not met into a fire for whatever, you know. That's my shitter way of explaining my
yeah. No, I mean, and this is, I think that's just a very real thing. I mean, you can only deal with the things that you have like contact with, but at the same time, I think the other problem that tends to always like show up is the idea of being able to, okay, I'm probably oversimplifying it again, but being able to other things that are not your own. The idea,
what do you mean by other? Sorry.
Sort of like that is not ours.
Right.
Yeah. The ability to say that is not us. That is something completely other than like what I am. There's and when it's done in a way that's pretty much like dehumanizing, basically, like to be like othered in a way that people use to like justify the mistreatment of like other people. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think. Yeah, I did not mean to go on that tangent.
No, I love it. I don't mean I love it because you're talking about very heavy stuff. Yeah, I love it. Give me more heavy shit about how fucked up the world is. I'm following you. I'm following you. And
I do feel like that is a big part of it. I mean, like whenever there were like things that happened during different forms of like European colonization, colonizing of Europeans colonizing shit, was them trying to say that somebody was through the othering of somebody else. And trying to say that they weren't civilized or so. And that's what they use to justify their actions.
I mean, I think even now, like on so many levels, it's just like, because I always sort of feel that there's two layers to someone's political beliefs. One is what their beliefs are, and the other is how they act on it. Like so many people, like I'll encounter, and I've experienced this myself, and I've done this myself. I'll have a thought that is more like, say, left wing, you know, but like maybe my reaction about a solution for a second is right wing. Like, you know, like I'll be cycling, for example, and like cycling is good for the environment and blah blah blah. More people should cycle. But then like a car drives really badly and I'm like, you fucking cunt, you know, like, and I've just acted like a fucking fascist, and I haven't understood, you know, maybe what the car driver's motivation or I'm just thinking about me and my space, you know, rather than fitting in.
Honestly, like I think you have to, I don't know, for me personally, I feel like I have to like leave the idea of like, okay, I'm probably much more like left, but at the same time I've been told that I'm definitely much more like conservative. But I feel like everybody should just do what they actually feel like doing.
Well, we're all on the spectrum of everything, aren't we? Really,
yeah,
and
no,
it's
exactly.
like, you know, to polarize everything feels like it's the problem, because that's polarizing other stuff.
Yeah, but no, I think this is like the exact like issue. I think this idea of polarization is what makes it, where it's possible, easier to like other. But as well as it's the thing that creates a lot of issues. Every human being, everything that happens is like a gradient. It's not like a sort of like black and white. You know, like I feel like anything that happens happens for a number of reasons. Like nothing can happen just because of one reason. It has to be like a very specific, I mean, of course there might be like a catalyst that sets it off, But they have to, for any event to happen, they have to